And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
It's been years now since Descent 2nd Edition comes out, and they are still producing expansions for it. I remember when Imperial Assault came out, people said, oh, are they still going to support Descent? Are people still going to play Descent? Yes, we are, and I still love Descent. And today we're taking a look at the newest expansion, The Mists of Bilehall, which is not really a pleasant name. An ancient curse taints your soul. New monsters, new stuff. Let's take a look at what's in this. I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you already know how to play Descent. Let's see. This expansion has more boards, of course, with different types of terrain. It does offer a few new things. There's a new campaign. It's a mini campaign. It's actually half of a normal size campaign. However, there is an extra campaign coming in, an expansion that's coming out in 2016 that you'll be able to combine and put these together. But this game also comes with walls that are crumbling. And it actually has these pieces here that fit around the walls like this. So as a wall is somewhere, there's possible crumbling things, and when heroes go into those, there's a chance they can clear the rubble, but they can also take some damage. All right, but we're here to see the new monsters, right? So let's take a look at the new monsters. First, we have the Bone Horrors, which I'm assuming look a little less deadly in their non-painted form. I'm sure they're quite nasty. The Bone Horrors have a lot of cool things about them. First, they have Extend, which means they can hit something 3 spaces away. That's like a ranged attack, essentially, except you don't need to roll for the ranged. And friendly figures don't block their sight. They can move you to 2 spaces away from the monster, so they're kind of pulling you in. And they have Pierce. And they roll some nice dice, especially in the second act where they're rolling blue, red, and yellow. A little bit gruesome here, we have the Brood Walkers. Now the Brood Walkers, which are also kind of nasty looking, and let's see if we can focus up on these guys so we can see them a little bit better. All right, so we have these Brood Walkers here. We'll lay one down so you can see them. The Brood Walkers have Hive Defense, which means each space next to them is a hazard space, which is really deadly for heroes as they come in. And they're also, spaces next to them can be a sludge space. So they're not all as deadly, okay? The Hive Defense is only on the red one. Spaces next to him are hazards, but spaces next to them are sludge spaces. Sludge is a new kind of space that's on some of the boards and things. For example, this whole board here is half of it sludge. And sludge is very similar to water, and you move in it slows you down dramatically. They can also terrorize their opponent, or terrify. I'm sorry. Terrify is a new status token that people can get, and essentially you can't spend surges. And if there's no enemy figures in your line of sight at the end of your turn, discard, discard. So that's really tough. So Terrify essentially means you can't spend surges until you run away. So it's a really nice, I really like this new status here, although you think, why do these monsters terrify you and the other ones that we've run across so far don't? But whatever. And then we have a bunch of Reanimate, which are other names for skeletons. I'm kind of pleased about these guys in general because I like to have skeletons. We already have the skeleton archers. Now we can have skeletons. They have phalanx here. When they're adjacent to somebody else, they don't roll the brown die on defense. They are going to roll the gray die. But what makes these guys really powerful is reanimation. If you don't kill them straight up, they will either heal completely or heal equal to the amount of monsters that from their group that are close within them, whichever number is smaller. So at the beginning, they're not so bad, but when there's only one left, you're going to have to take them out in one shot, which is pretty nasty and terrifying. They also have swarms, so the more of them, the more damage they do. They're not so powerful, so there is that involved, but that reanimate thing is really deadly, and it makes me giggle as the Overlord. There's also some new lieutenants, which I'm sure we'll see figures for them soon enough. This one is the one I probably like the best, the Zarahel, because they have soul mastery. Whenever they kill a hero, The hero doesn't die immediately, but you get to make one attack with that hero before they die. So you fight some pretty tough heroes, and this person has a pretty cool ability to hit people like that. The game also comes with more of the different cards that are involved, including more weapons, and there's some cool weapons here. The Soul Stone, but also of course, some weapons that allow the heroes to have Terrify. Like, for example, the Witch Hazel Bow, +2 range, and then on a surge you can add 1 to the damage, or you can Terrify. This one here, the Soulbound Sword, add 2 to damage, Pierce 4, and Terrify. Terrifying monsters is kind of a fun thing to do because, hey, they've been doing enough terrorizing on their own. Tainted cards are something new. I really like these. Each hero is dealt one of these. My only complaint about these tainted cards is I wish there was more of them. But each hero gets dealt one of these. It adds 2 to your health. However, if you're defeated, you turn the card over, and now it has like a negative effect. Like, for example, this one is -1 to 2 of your skill rolls. You're tainted. While you're knocked out, you can only recover health points from untainted heroes or heroic feats. So that happens to all of them, basically. Here, if a monster is defeated during your turn, exhaust this card. When you refresh this card, each hero suffers 1 hit point. So there's like some pretty nasty effects that these can have. Sure, they give you that +2 health, but they kind of give you the idea of, hey, we're going through this nasty dungeon thing, and now heroes, they stayed here too long, they're going to get tainted. Now, I really like this expansion. It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of cool things it adds, but I want to say something up front that I did miss the fact that in this expansion, there's really nothing new for the heroes. Okay, I mean, yes, there's a new campaign they can go through, and there's some new weapons, but there's no new heroes, which isn't a big deal. There's like a billion heroes anyway. But there's no new hero classes, which is something I always look forward to in a new expansion. So there's that's missing, and there's also not new Overlord classes, which again, I don't think the game needs at this point, but I do miss the new hero classes, and it felt like maybe, and I'd have to sit down and compare this with other ones, it felt like there was slightly less content, but as the Overlord player, that doesn't bother me as much. But just be warned, because I know some people are always looking forward to the new classes that they can play with. The expansion here is pretty solid. I like the whole undead flavor to it. I'm a big fan of undead monsters, not zombies, but skeletons and that regenerate, come back to life, and those bone ones that can get at and get you. That's cool. And then I can throw in my skeleton archers that I already have, and some of the other monsters that you've seen. If you've never gone and bought the old sets of Descent, the original ones, or the upgrade pack type things, then this may be the first time you've dealt with a lot of undead, but I think it does a good job. I've always liked the Descent universe because it takes fantasy and then makes it its own. These aren't, your generic things. I mean, the skeletons are, but these new bone horror things, and I mean, if you look at the picture in the back of the box, the one guy's covered with scarab beetles coming out. I would be terrified too. Terrify is my favorite new condition, I think. Of all the expansions. I really like the fact that it cancels surges. As an Overlord player, that's a big deal because heroes are always using those surges to mess you over. You terrify them, they have to decide, are they going to run and get out of line of sight of monsters, or are they just going to live without surges? Either way, it offers some good choices. I'm also excited to see how the stuff in this expansion is going to line up with the new app the computer app for Descent, which is going to have them playing the bad guys. I'm just very excited about this, the new monsters that are added, and it's a good solid half campaign that's in here too. So yes, there's a lot of content in here, not much for the heroes, but enough that I think you'll really like it, and I feel like Descent is still staying fresh after all these years. That's the Mists of Bilehall. Dice Tower Judgment approved.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.